Hey everyone, Luke here, and before we get into the video, I know there's quite a lot of action that happens in this chapter, which I'm really pumped for. Really been looking forward to this getting back into another action-filled chapter. And there's a lot of dialogue as well, but there's mostly action. This is going to be mostly an action-oriented chapter, which I've loved. It kind of reminiscent of the fight with Lewis, particularly in one particular moment in that fight, which I'll get into. But before we get into that, I have to make an announcement. Since, as we know, next week is the month for October. It starts October, and that's going to be the month of Halloween. And I've got a special announcement in next week's section of videos, which I'm really looking forward to. I hope you guys are going to look forward to it, and I hope we can get a lot of feedback on that particular video. I'm not going to spoil it, but anybody who's part of the Promised Neverland Discord will actually know what that's all about, because I've actually announced it on that page on the Promised Neverland Discord, which I'll probably link to in the bottom at the end of this video. I'm not sure at this moment in time, but anyway, that's all I wanted to say, and yeah, let's get right into it. Ugh! Hello everyone, Luke here, and welcome to the Promised Neverland chapter 104 review, titled Abandoning. Now this is a reference to what happened in the last chapter. As we all know, Pepe at the end of the chapter came in and said, "Quick, the enemy's attacking!" Then we get a big old explosion. We see Andrew coming in, he's ready to slaughter everybody in this shelter, and we see all the kids getting really scared and really paranoid. And this is a chance where they have to think like, okay, we've got to abandon now, they found us, we've got to find somewhere else to go. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to this. I'm just really pumped up, been pumped up all week to find out what's going to happen next. So yeah, let's get right into it. Oh yeah, and something else that I forgot to mention in the last chapter, which I know wasn't one of my longest ones, and I feel like it could have been better, but that's my own opinion. But I've got out everything I wanted to say about the chapter, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. As long as you guys know everything, my thoughts on the chapter, and I know stuff was left out, which I'm going to cover right here. So yeah, when they're actually in that flashback and they actually go to that demon village, and we see the day and night circle in the ceiling, we see a panel that has like a chart, and we see like different evolution styles for the demons, and one chart in particular got one picture of that chart got me particularly interested. It was the chart that actually showed a fully grown human at the beginning, and it went in sort of like a demon style at the end. And that got me thinking like maybe they are actually going to go down that route of the demons are actually an evolution of the humans, and that's actually where they've come from, and that happened 1,000 years ago through some sort of ritualistic means. But that's just what I wanted to cover on that topic, and it was really interesting going back and actually looking at that and realising that I actually missed out on that point. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say. The fact that we had a chart that actually basically pretty much, in my opinion, sort of confirmed my suspicions throughout the beginning of the series that the demons are not actually demons, they're actually evolutions of humanity, and they've actually been this way for thousands of years through various ritualistic means. So that will maybe get brought up again as we go further along in the final arc. But anyway, let's get right into the meat of this action of this chapter right now. So anyway, picking up right from where the last chapter left off, or sort of like going back in time and getting a recap, we see Pepe rushing in and he's saying, "Everybody get down, the enemy's coming in." And then we see something else. We see how the enemy actually created that explosion. It was sort of like a TNT. So like, you know, when they have various TNT, they pluck the lever down and just a big old explosion. It's pretty much that. And we see Andrew going, well then, and we see a really creepy image of Andrew looking really serious and really badass. So this is what I'm meaning about him as a villain, in that he's like a combination of Lewis and Isabella, in that he's sort of like waited, he's sort of like weeded out various little bits, and he's sort of like biding his time, and then as soon as he finds all the information he needs, he strikes. And that's pretty much a perfect combination of Isabella and Lewis, and he's got a really creepy and very imposing demeanor. So yeah, he's a perfect follow-up from Lewis and Isabella, in that he's different from both of them, but he has similarities from them, but he has also like I said, he has also differences which makes him really intimidating. The fact that he's an ordinary human, he's not a demon, but he's he's holding no balls, he's going after them because he really wants to keep he really wants to serve Peter Refari and keep him from, keep the promise from actually being broken. And he's like pulling no punches here, he's actually going out, trying to find these humans and really taking them down. And I really like how imposed he's really giving that impression of in this situation. The fact that, okay, I found the shower, I'm going to go and take down these kids and I'm going to exterminate them for actually being a threat to the promise itself. So anyway, we get the title page which shows Andrew and his men just going after them and saying, right, we're going to exterminate them. And then we get cuts around to the various points of the shot, and we see that behind a sort of like book, like a sort of like piano case, there's like this secret area where all the kids have gathered in, which shows just how resourceful they have actually become in the 2 years that they've actually spent in this shelter. Well, nearly 2 years they've spent in this shelter, and they found all the secret areas where they can actually go just in case the enemy does strike. And we see everybody coming together, and we see them asking, like, is everybody here? Is everybody all right? And we see, is it Gilda? Yeah, we see that Gilda is going on, and she's saying, I've counted 61 just now, so that there's all of them except for Lucas and Rosary, and no one is hurt. And we see Lima and Tommy going, there's an invasion by humans, so the Fari clan has found us after all, which shows just how desperate they're actually getting in situations like this, that they may actually die. But also, going back to what Gilda has just said about Lucas and Rossi. Rossi is actually the guy, it's actually the little kid that was with Pepe in that monitor room, monitoring the activity. And at first I was like, wait, who's Rossi? We've never heard of Rossi, but when we see him later in the chats, it's confirmed that, yes, he is actually the kid that was with Pepe monitoring the situation. So he probably went and found Lucas before Pepe probably told him, go and find Lucas because this is an emergency, and he went and told everybody else. So yeah, Lucas and Rossi, they're together at this moment in time whilst everybody else is hiding and sort of like figuring out what their next move is going to be now that their enemies actually found them. So as Sak is going on, being like, wait, so how did they find us? We took every precaution to figure out and find out a certain situation so that we wouldn't be found by them. And we see Pepe looking really distraught, and he's like, no idea, and they just popped up all of a sudden and coming out of the darkness, which actually does get me thinking, like, how on earth did they actually find them? Like, what techniques did they actually do? Maybe they have some sort of technology that the kids do not have that is able to just make them, like, just pop out of nowhere, or they just sort of like got into the blind spot of the cameras, like the cameras can't see everything, and they just sort of like got behind them so that they couldn't be seen. And then when the time come when they wanted them to be seen by them to find, yes, we have found you, that's when they got into the blind spot. But I really like this moment with Pepe, how he's just like there with like, oh my god, because I think he's thinking at this moment, like, I failed to keep this place safe because he was the one on duty at the time. And that can really put a dent in somebody's confidence. Like, they feel like they're confident enough that they've done this so many times that nothing bad's going to happen, that when something bad does happen, it like really messes with them, and it makes them really sort of like question their own abilities. And that's what Pepe is probably thinking right here. He's like questioning his abilities and whether or not he's truly worthy to stand alongside the others in this situation, which I like. And it's showing just from panels like this, like how just from a simple reaction from a character can actually tell a lot about them without actually having to say an awful lot, particularly from what Pepe's done right here. And then Pepe continues to go on how him and Rossi were actually monitoring continuously, like just really focusing, and we see them actually like just focusing on the monitors, just really going out, like being like, okay, there's nothing here, so we should be safe. And then it's just like, wait, there's an enemy attack. What happened? Where did they come from? And again, we see that Pepe's just getting really distraught about it in another panel. Like, it's just like gritting his teeth, gritting his mind. And it's like, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, all these men came, and we see that Ray is actually thinking to himself. Ray is actually being like he has been throughout the series. He's like, okay, we need to calmly think about the situation, calmly and firmly think about what's going on here. So like, okay, they were watching, Pepe and Rossi were watching everything that's going on, and Ray comes to the conclusion that did they come weaving their way along the blind spot of the cameras, which again, like I said before, that might have been the case, like they came through the blind spots, but again, they're in a wide open space as well. Now that I think about it, they're in a wide open space, the shot, a wide open desert space. So, like, it's pretty hard for them to actually miss this opportunity unless they came from another area that's behind the shelter that they didn't know about. But yeah, it's a real interesting little bit here that we have from Ray, that he's like actually questioning, like, how did they actually do this as well? Which shows them just actually trying to figure out ways to figure out, okay, the enemy found us in this situation. We need to figure out this so that we make sure that this situation doesn't happen again. And everyone's like, okay, Oliver is like, keep your cool, how many enemies are there? And then we see Peppy going 8, that's we've seen at least, which shows that even he at this moment doesn't know how many people are actually with Andrew's group, and there could actually be more. And we see Gillian looking really really depressed, like they could actually be killed in this situation, which again just adds to the tension of the chapter. Even though there's not a lot of dialogue and there's a lot of action, it's still really tense, and it feels like anybody could go at this moment in time. They're not out of the woods, and the enemy has come and have found them, which is a far cry from when they went and struck the enemy with the demons in Goldie Pond. It's like, okay, they're being hunted again, and it's showing that they're not out of the woods yet. They've still got a long way to go before they can actually make this new promise. And that's why I feel like this series is still going to be around for another like 4 or 5 years. Like, this arc is going to go on for a really long time, because they're obviously going to still have a lot of people coming after them. Like, Peter Rafari is going to be coming after them. Grandma most certainly might be coming after them. Like, she might have connections to Peter Rafari. And of course, we've got the big one, which is Andrew, which I feel like he's going to be around for a really long time. I feel like he's got something up his sleeve, because we still don't know what happened with him and Phil. And I feel like he's sort of like drafted in Phil to be sort of like a diversion for Emma, because he probably found out something that he knew about Phil and Emma's relationship, and he's probably going to use that to his advantage to sort of like weed them out eventually, and sort of like bring them and get them exterminated. I feel like that's Andrew's plan. Like, he's going to be using Phil as bait to lure Emma to him. So as Hugo is questioning, there's 8 invaders, we see Emma asking Pepe, so Rossi and Lucas, they're together, and Pepe confirms that yes, they are together, because Rossi was worried about Lucas's injury, so he went to find him, and so they've ended up in the hidden room, which is the same room as where they have the telephone that they can use to contact their allies, which I put that in quotations because they might not actually be allies. It might have just been a recorded message that they've perceived as allies, sort of like with when Emma and Lucas went into that room in Goldie Pond and they found Peter Rafari, but it was not Peter Rafari, James Rafari, William Minerva, and they discovered that, oh, these were recordings from way long ago. It might be the same case in this situation with this telephone, that the reason why their allies haven't contacted them is because it's actually just a recording that was made a long time ago. That might actually still be the case. But anyway, so Pepe goes on to say that that they're in as good of a hidden spot as it gets, and this shows this is what I mean by how this is a strong community now, how they've become a strong community, in the sense that Rossi was like, even though the enemy was attacking, he could have gone with Pepe and forgot about Lucas, but it's like he thought, no, Lucas has got that injury, he's got that disability, he's not got one of his arms, and he can't walk as well as the others, so I'm going to go and find him and explain the situation. We're going to find a different plan, and we're going to discover a different tactic that we can use, so that when we run through with each other, we're all right and we're all together and we're all strong again. And that's what I love about the series now, how it's become reminiscent of the first arc, in the sense that there's a community here, there's a group of friends and family, and they're all working together to solve a situation and get out of it alive. So as Andrew is scouring around for everyone, he goes into the kitchen and he questions, like, did they already leave? Did they know of our attack, and did they already leave before we actually made it? And as he touches a cup of hot coffee, or it might be tea, he touches the kettle, and then he's like, no, it's still warm, so they're still here. And then he calls his service team on the servers on the outside of the bunker to ask if there's any sign of them, and the guy who's basically monitoring the outside confirms that there's nothing out there. So even though they may manage to escape the shelter, they've still got a problem to worry about how many men that could actually be on the surface, because we only see this one man here outside the bunker of the shelter, but there could be men surrounding the area, so that even if they pop up out of one area, there's a guy there that can radio in Andrew to let them know, yeah, they're outside. And there could be another man. We don't know how many men Andrew has on his team at this point, and there could be more than 8, like I've already said, and we could be in serious danger at this point. So as Andrew goes on to say that no, they may not have escaped and they may still be in the shelter somewhere, we see him scouring around and we see Ray going, it's only a matter of time before they find us. There's nothing we can do at this point. It's no good in hiding. And then we get cut to Rossi and Lucas, and Rossi questioning Lucas, what should we do? And then it cuts back to Emma saying, we've got to leave here. This place is no good anymore. And they have to run away from the shelter, and the enemy knows about the place. And Hugo concurs with Emma, saying, right, at least 8 soldiers have come, maybe more, and it's very likely that Rifari's headquarters have gotten information on their location and where they are right now, which shows, again, that even if they do get out, the Rifari knows where they are, knows what they're all about, knows that they're trying to take down the promise at this moment in time, and trying to create a new one, so that the whole situation, the whole establishment of the world just collapses, and he needs to eliminate this problem as quickly as possible. Which again is my opinion why he's the main villain of the series. Like, he's established himself as the main villain because he's the one trying to maintain the promise by any means necessary, even though it means killing other humans, because he deems them traitors to the cause. So as they're discussing the idea of that they have to leave the shelter, the kids get the realisation of, so they're going to have to leave their home, essentially, the place that they've worked so hard on these last 2 years. And we see the kids having flashbacks to all the moments that they've actually made this place basically a new community for them, and now that an enemy's attacked and they have to leave, and they're basically being thrown out of their establishment that they've made so much their home, and having to abandon it at this point. And we see that the kids are really sad and really distraught about it, because they thought they found a place to actually relax, regroup, get ideas in place so that they can actually formulate their plans for the future. And yeah, that's really a moment that I really like, how it shows that even though you may think you find your place in the world, there's going to be that one instrument that with a snap of the fingers it all comes crumbling down. And this situation has pretty much proven that that's the case, that they're actually having to leave and they're not safe anymore. And it just shows that there's still a really long way to go before they can actually be safe without actually being hunted, because they're still being hunted even though they thought they were safe for 2 years. And I feel like they got a bit cocky, because it was going so well for them, that when it did actually go wrong for them, they're kind of like getting this realisation back in their head that they are still in demon territory. This is still a demon infested world, and they really need to figure out, like, okay, we really need to focus now. The enemy's found us. We're not going to be safe. We're still going to be hunted, so we really need to actually buckle down and think like, okay, this is what we need to do before we actually can actually rest and relax and have a future together as friends and as family. However, it's not just that, as Nate goes on to say that it's not just that, because they'll also be throwing away the only hope they'll have of contacting their supporters. Although, like I said before, at the previous points in the chapter, that phone may actually just be a recording, and there may not actually be any supporters on the outside. And I feel like that's the route that they're actually going to go down, that there have been so many messages left on this one phone that in the 2 years they haven't actually figured out like they are actually messages, and they may feel like they are actually communicating with them. Or because because I remember, like, the contacts have not contacted them, and they've just had those small few messages. So maybe that, like I said, there may be that it is actually just those recordings that they've had. Although that actually questions me, like, did they actually bother to actually pick up the phone again and start asking questions, like, from their end? Although I feel like the reason why they might not actually have done that is because they might have run the risk of Peter and Andrew finding them sooner rather than right now. Hugo then brings up the fact that it's not worth their lives, and they all knew that this might happen. After all, they did all the preparations they could just in case that they may have ended up being attacked. And we see various panels of them getting prepared for certain situations, so like preparing supplies and preparing the weapons, finding out where all the exits are. And I really like this moment from Hugo, as it shows just how much he's grown as a character and how much more likeable he's actually become. Because when he was first introduced, he was a right scumbag that could have potentially killed Emma, but now that he's gone along and we've actually found out what he's all about, it's like why he became the way he did through his his confrontations with Lewis and the other demons, and now that he's reunited back with Lucas and he's spent 2 years patching up things with Lucas and getting to know the kids and getting to know their personalities, I feel like he's become sort of like that uncle figure that they can look up to, which again goes back into my idea that Ray might actually be his uncle, because again their designs and their personalities, they're so similar and they've gone on such a similar journey, and they have similar looking hair. It just hammers in more that Hugo might actually be Ray's uncle. Like I said, they're just so similar, and I can't stop getting that out of my head about how much of connection they have with each other. Look at it this way. Like I've said before, Ray started off very cold and callous, but he sort of warmed up to us in the same way that Hugo started off cold and callous, but he sort of warmed up to us through his interactions with the other characters. And that's why I'm getting this inkling in my head that it may turn out Hugo is Ray's uncle. So as Hugo goes on to explain about the exits, we see him opening a passageway that leads out of the armory, and he explains that the exits are, one is the main passageway that they all know about, and there are 2 emergency exits, and one of them is actually in the armory, which all the kids actually scramble in to get, and it leads into the tunnels underneath the bunker, sort of like similar to how we had those tunnels where Songju and Musica led the kids out of the forest. It's sort of similar to that. It's that underground area that they're in at this moment in time. And then Hugo goes on to say that there are 7 routes leading to these exits through secret passageways, and one is through the back of the armory, which they're all, like I said, they're all in right now, and they're all getting their weapons and all getting geared up. We see Saik getting like a long rifle weapon, and we don't see what all the other kids are getting, although I've got a pretty good idea when we get further down the line of what they all actually have. I feel like they all have machine guns and shotguns, and Emma obviously has her bow and arrow and her guns as well. So I feel like next chapter is going to be similar to what happened in the fight with Lewis when they were in that house and was sort of like claustrophobic. I feel like that's going to be what's happening in the next chapter, which again, this chapter reminded me very much of the fight with Lewis, which is why I really enjoyed it so much, and the fact that there was an enemy that they had to deal with, and they had to do a lot of strategy and planning out on the spot in order to figure out a way to take him down. And I feel like that's really going to come into play in the next chapter with Andrew, as we'll see at the end of this chapter. So anyway, going on, Hugo goes, second is via the north corridor, third is the monitor room, 4 is the archive, 6 is the south corridor, 5th is the bathroom, 6 is the south corridor, and the 7th is in the hidden room. It's in the hidden room of the Typhon, which is where Lucas and Rossi are. And we see Rossi actually getting into the cabinet, getting into the secret passageway with Lucas as well, to try and escape from the situation. And I just love that. Like, this is a common cliche. Like, anime and manga are addicted to the number 7. Like, for example, we have the 7 homunculus, we have the 7 Dragon Balls, we have the 7 Millennium items, we have the 7 passageways in this hallway, and we finally have the 7 secret walls at the 7 walls. I just love how much of anime and manga is so obsessed with the number 7, and there was an honest trailer for Fairy Tail that actually brought this up. I know I'm going off a bit of a tangent, but I just want to bring this up, how just the number 7 is so addicted to anime and manga. But anyway, there was an honest trailer of Fairy Tail that was made a long time ago. You can probably find it on YouTube for yourself. But yeah, it had a moment where 2 of the characters were going, so both dragons vanished 7 days ago. Yeah, 777 on the 7th month of the 7th year. And we see one of them going, what is with all the 7s? How should I know? I just find it hilarious how number 7 is just so it's just such a number that people just latch onto. Maybe because it's a lucky number, I don't know. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that. There's 7 passageways, and we see all the kids scrambling to get through them, to get out of this situation that they're in right now. So anyway, as the strategy is going on, we see Foy saying all of these entrances are well hidden, a safe way to escape unknown to any invaders. And I think it's Emma that actually says it, because we have the panel where we have the fort patterns going beside us. So I think it's Emma that's actually thinking this. But again, they really don't know the enemy at this point. They don't know Andrew. They've never actually met Andrew. So for all he know, he could be like just that one step ahead of them and find a secret passageway so that they're in a situation and that they're all clustered together, and he might have his chance to actually strike at that point. But I think like this moment here is really going to come back to bite them in the arse in the next chapter. So as everybody is preparing to go, we see that Don is going, we'll head for the ancient underground network that Sungju has connected together. And I'm really looking forward to that, because we might actually get to see Sungju. Hey, I've got an idea in place. What if in the next chapter we see Andrew has them cornered, and then we see Sungju just strike him? Like he could, Sungju and Misuka could actually turn up and just strike them down at the last minute and get the kids to safety again. And we find out more about Sungju and Misuka from that from the next few chapters. I feel like that might actually play out. They're in the cabins together, like Andrew, because I'm just going to spoil it, right? Andrew gets away to get into the underground network where the kids are at the end of the chapter. But I feel like in the next chapter there's going to be like a certain situation where he has them all cornered, and then Sungju appears and just protects them and is actually an ally to them, because Sungju actually wants them to break the promise, and he feels like they can break the promise, but I feel like he's going to have to pull his weight and band together with them to actually get them out of this situation. We might find out what happened to him in that fight with that demon that was set up when he actually went to confront that demon, so that the kids had a chance to get away and find the shelter in the first place. And we see here Ray going, in fact, we're looking at the enemy has chosen a surprise attack during the night. If we don't do this right, then we can use the darkness to escape unseen, just like they used it. After one day of walking, we'll be in the forest already. And I feel like that's not going to work, because I feel like Andrew is going to use the darkness as well to his advantage to find him, and somebody's actually going to touch his hand, they're going to see him, they're going to freak out, and he's going to get his gun ready, and as they're preparing to fight, Sundry just appears out of nowhere, saves them, and it might go back into what we saw in a few chapters ago, where we saw Songju and Musica, because I'm pretty sure that if we hadn't have seen them, they might not have been reintroduced into the story, even though I thought it was very likely that they were going to be reintroduced. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, because that might actually happen. We might actually get that. We might actually get the return of Songju and Musica and find out a lot more about them, and find out how they would react to seeing adult humans as opposed to children as well. So as they're all preparing to leave, Emma gives them a last pep talk and saying like, look, we're leaving our home behind, and I know that this is a major blow for all of us, but as long as we're alive, we'll find a way. We can always do it again and again, and surviving is everything. And that's a really key moment in this chapter and in the whole series, that survival is everything, because that, as humans, that's our nature. We have the nature to survive for as long as we can possibly survive without the worry of tragic things happening to us. And even though they've had a lot of tragedy bestowed before them, the fact that particularly Emma, the fact that she saw one of her foster sisters basically dead right in front of her, and she's still been able to come out of this strong-willed and determined to not let another tragedy like that happen again, just shows just how much of a strong-willed character she is, and why she's the perfect protagonist for this series. Because any other kid would have just been like crying in fear and probably would have spilt the beans, and they probably would have ended up dead at this moment in time as well. But with Emma, no, it just proves how much strong-willed she is and how determined she is to like get everybody out of here, because she's in the same boat as them and she doesn't want to be in that situation. And if she went off and did this without really any consideration for the others, she might be a more shallow character. And I feel like the fact that she's been so selfless to really go after and protect everyone despite the risks that she has for herself just shows the bravery and the amount of courage that she actually has. So as Emma gives her final piece of advice and piece of encouragement for the kids, they step into the underground passageway so that they can actually escape the shelter. And then we cut to Andrew going to the monitor room if they can hear him, and they're like, yes, we can hear you. And he asks them how the video terminals are, and they're still online, but it appears that somebody switched to dummy feeds at some point, but they're about to plug the real ones back. And Andrew congratulates them, which just shows how smart Pepe was at that moment in time to think like, okay, we've got to distract them long enough, so I'm going to put up dummy feeds, and maybe I can get everybody's attention. We can formulate a plan and get out of here before they actually get it back into reality. And sure enough, it actually did, and they've actually been able to escape for now. As we see Lucas and Rosie, I keep saying Rosie, it's Rossi. as we see Lucas and Rossi going along, we see Lucas peeking in through the monitor room's passageway, and we see the man in the monitor room going going and listening to Andrew, and Andrew saying that room was crucial to the security of the cattle. It was their lifeline. I'm sure they must have failed securing the status of all exits, which gets Lucas really worried. As we go further along, we see him going, this is bad, they've already noticed the fake videos, and we see Andrew and the man going along and saying it's unlikely, but should they manage to reach the surface, let us know. And the man goes Roger to Andrew, and we see Lucas continue going on and saying the live feeds will be restored as soon as the children get out. They'll be right in front of the cameras, which again just shows the sheer intensity and the sheer terror that they have in this situation, that if they get outside and the cameras come back on, like the real cameras, they're in serious trouble, because that man could just point out and say like, okay, there they are, let's go, there we are, we can go and get them right now. Andrew, they're over there, go and get them. And he could have men surrounding them, and they could all be outnumbered and outgunned. And Lucas really has to really think on his feet right now. And I really like Lucas. I like him as a character. I like his personality and his determination. He sort of like reminds me of certain characters that have that we don't know that much about them, but they're just such a badass, like Shanks from One Piece, even more so, because both of them have lost their arm. And I feel like Lucas is the Shanks of this world. Like, he wants to protect his allies, and he's not afraid to stand up for what he believes in, even though he's at a clear disability and a disadvantage. And this sort of determination to stand up for what he believes is right is further proven when he says to Rossi, you stay here, I have to do this. And we see Lucas just get out of the room, sneak up on the guy, grab him from behind, and just like struggle with him, and then throw him over his shoulder so he's knocked out. And I was like, yeah, go on, Lucas, get in there, get that guy, get out safe, get warning those kids that danger is approaching them. And we see Rossi at the beginning panicking, like Pepe did so well to set up these dummy videos and to deprive our trail, and we can't let him have this room. And Lucas is like, this man needs to be spotted. And again, like with Shanks, despite the fact that both of them have injuries, are able to go toe to toe with people. They only have one arm, and they're still able to like just do some many impressive feats. Like Shanks just takes out his sword, blocks Whitebeard and Akainu from certain attacks that could have tremendous destructive force in One Piece. We see Lucas here just grab the guy, no balls, just grab him from behind, flick him over his shoulder and knock him out. I was like, yeah, Lucas, you are the man. So after Lucas has knocked out the guy, he says to Rossi, you stay back because you're not safe, and Lucas has to destroy the monitors. But before he can actually continue, he picks up the radio, and he can still hear Andrew talking on the other end, and he's like shocked, and it's like, Rossi, you need to go and warn Emma's group. And we see as Rossi is panting and going after Emma's group, he's saying, I have to tell them. And Lucas says to Rossi, says to Rossi, leave me and run, Rossi. Get to Emma's group right now. And we see that, and what Andrew is actually saying is saying, all squads assume positions, secure every exit, which again, it's just like, oh my god, they are in so much trouble right now. Rossi needs to be careful. He needs to run and get to that group before they actually make it outside, because I guarantee that if Rossi doesn't get to them and they make it outside, a few of Andrew's men is going to be there, and they're just going to have machine guns, they're going to go and just kill everyone, just wipe them out. So Rossi needs to get to them and needs to formulate a new plan so that they're not actually going to come in contact with Andrew, although I feel like that's going to happen at some point. They are actually going to come in contact with Andrew, and they're going to see just how much of a threat he can actually be. And then we see why exactly they are actually in danger, because we see Andrew and his guys find one of the hidden entrances, and we see that this proves just how intelligent Andrew is, because he's able to just think on his feet, like, okay, so they have secret exits to get out of here, because they have secret passageways. That's probably where they've actually gone right now. And then we see Rossi going on to say, why, how? The enemy somehow knows our information is out. They know everything. And we get the final scene of the chapter, which we see all the kids on one side, and we see Andrew on the other. And he was like, we can't use any exits. They are waiting for us. This is Rossi saying this. And that's where the chapter ends. And we see some of the we see some of the kids. We see Toma, Limey, Emma, Gillian, and Gilda, and we see Hugo and Adam, which I love that we see Adam and we've established that he's actually with them, which I feel like he can actually come into a protective force, like to protect the kids at this moment in time when they actually do come in contact with Andrew and his men. Like his body mass could actually stop the bullets. Like it could actually be like how Luffy stops bullets because they're made of rubber, whereas Andrew could do the same thing. He's just so massive and so beefy, like the bullets don't actually penetrate, or he could actually be blocking them and giving a way for the kids to actually find out a strategy to use against Andrew. And we see some of the kids. We see Gillian with a machine gun. I repeat, Gillian with a machine gun. That is going to be badass. I want her to use that machine gun at some point. Basically, like how when she was in a battle with Luke and she had those two machine guns, she would like eat lead and just destroying all the demons. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So that's the end of the chapter. A really good, really strong chapter. It showed them like, despite they having an attack on their home that they've built over the 2 years, they've bound together and thought like on their feet. Right, we need to find a way to get out of here because we can't live here anymore. And we need to find a new place to live, somewhere where we can actually regroup and formulate a plan to actually get into the demon world and make that new promise through that ritual means that we saw in the last chapter. And yeah, I really liked how we had a nice balance of action and dialogue, but more action, but the action was more intense action and more like worrying action. Like, are they actually going to sink? Are they actually going to get out of here? And we get a nice cliffhanger to show like the enemy is coming and they're not prepared for it, but I feel like they'll have some ideas up the sleeve, because one of the key ideas of Emma is that she's able to quickly think on her feet and come up with various strategies, and I really love that about it, like they can actually use that to their advantage. But anyway guys, what did you think of that chapter? Let me know, like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys next time, because next time there are going to be 2 videos. There's going to be the review and then there's going to be the announcement, so look forward to that guys, because what I've got planned is going to be amazing.